It's finally time for the most anticipated playoff series of them all, because who didn't see the Montreal Canadiens going up against the Vegas Golden Knights in a Final Four series for the Stanley Cup, right? Obviously, I'm just kidding. There's very few people that saw this one coming. If you did, congratulations, but I'd also like some proof. But maybe these two teams have more in common than we're giving them credit for, because they feature two of the most aggressive, bold, freewheeling GMs in hockey right now. So speaking of GMs, we're going to bring in Craig Button to talk about this one. Also speaking about people who didn't see this series coming, Craig, I had to make the little dig, even though no one thought the Canadiens were going to make it out of this first round against the Leafs. Craig, you were a GM yourself. How fun is it to see two really bold, aggressive GMs get rewarded for their work in the postseason?
First of all, that was no little dig. That was a big dig. And I can take it, Julia, so you don't have to worry about it, okay? I didn't see it coming, certainly. And I'm not so sure after Game 4 of the Leafs Habs series that anybody saw it coming. But kudos to the Montreal Canadiens. But, you know, one of the words that you used there to talk about Kelly McCrimmon and Marc Bergevin was freewheeling. But the other thing that they are is also very directed. And when they set their sights on something that they feel that can improve their team, they are really determined to try to make it happen. You go to the Stanley Cup final in your first year in the league, and that may be reason enough to sit on your laurels. Kelly McCrimmon doesn't sit on his laurels. The Vegas Golden Knights haven't sat on their laurels. And here they are finding themselves in the last four teams playing for the third time in 4 years. That speaks significantly about an approach, about a direction, and yes, Julia, also about a belief in what they need to do to help their teams get there.
Yeah, you spoke a little bit to potential there. Well, Nick Suzuki is no longer just a draft pick. He's a tangible asset and a really valuable one. I know hindsight is 2020. You had to evaluate that trade the day it was made between these two really good GMs. How does it look now for you? It's really rare that these trades come out looking good for both teams, but it kind of looks that way.
Well, I don't think it looks that way. I think it is that way. And, you know, Max Pacioretty, the captain for the Montreal Canadiens, you know, he was reaching a point in his contract status where he could become an unrestricted free agent. And, you know, what the dollars were and everything that was going to go with his situation. So Mark had to evaluate that. But think about captain of the Montreal Canadiens being traded. That's pretty significant. So you're not just looking at, okay, what's a return? And I'm a big believer in quality, not quantity. But certainly Mark, in acquiring Nick Suzuki, it was a player that a scouting staff led by Trevor Timmons knew very well. And, you know, you can say that, okay, you're not sure of the young player, but you got to have a belief in that player's potential. And Nick Suzuki's potential was very high when they acquired him. And certainly when you watch Nick Suzuki play in his rookie year in the National Hockey League, in his second year in the National Hockey League, there is no doubt that he is a real good player for the Montreal Canadiens and will be for a long time. Now, Max Pacioretty, again, back to the Vegas Golden Knights. They had a lot of draft picks. They had some younger players, and they felt where they were at in their cycle was, hey, listen, we're not happy just being in the Stanley Cup final. We want to be able to add players. We want to be here. We want to be a contender. And so they make the move for Max Pacioretty. They sign him to a longer-term contract, and he certainly has delivered in a big way. Forget about his numbers. How about the winning goals? How about in the games that are really significant and the input and the productivity of Max Pacioretty? That's what you need, and certainly when you consider what he has done for the Vegas Golden Knights, it's a win-win for both teams. There's going to be a certain measure of uncertainty with a younger player, but you got to have that belief. There can't be a lack of belief that he's the guy. Marc Bergevin and his group certainly believe that Nick Suzuki was that guy.
Last one for you, Craig. Marc Bergevin in his red suit in elimination games has become kind of the image of the 2020 postseason so far. He's a real character, but he's all business, you tell us, when it comes to making these big deals for his team.
I can tell you this, Julia, as a general manager, you're always focused in on what you can do for your team. And when you're talking business, it needs to be business. It can't be a whole lot of chit chat and, hey, what are you doing? What would you think about doing? So Marc Bergevin, who's a very colorful person, he was very colorful as a player. We see the images of him as a general manager, still very colorful. not just in what he wears, but also in his personality. But when Mark gets his sights set on something that he thinks can improve his team, he's laser focused. He dials right into it, and he is all business. And you know what? It's hard when you do things and you're not seeing the results. And certainly for Marc Bergevin and the Montreal Canadiens, that had to be the case at certain points during the regular season, and certainly during the first 4 games of the Leafs series. But when you have a belief in what you're doing and you make the moves, and it's hard to believe when things aren't going well. But that's the most important time to believe. And not only did his players believe, but I think that Mark did as well. And you need the results, and you need to see those results to have that belief really strengthened. But when you watch the Montreal Canadiens, you can see Marc Bergevin's fingerprints all over this. Let's not forget, he traded his captain, Max Pacioretty. He also traded one of the most popular figures in the last 15, 20 years for the Montreal Canadiens in PK Subban for Shea Weber. And Shea Weber is a real significant player for the Montreal Canadiens. You can look at drafting Jesperi Kotkaniemi at 3rd overall, and people want to judge that. This young man's going to be a really good player. And you start to look at all the other things, signing Jeff Petrie to a long-term contract, trading for Joel Edmondson, trading for Josh Anderson, signing him to a long-term contract. These are all the things that Mark believed would make his team a Stanley Cup contender. He finds himself with that opportunity with one more series win to play for the Stanley Cup. But when Mark gets his sights focused, trust me, they're laser focused. But so is Kelly McCrimmon. And both of them know that when it comes to loyalty, they only need to be loyal to their team. And they will always look at what's best for their team. They're not looking at what other teams may be doing. They're not worried about trading in their division. They're worried about what makes their team the best possible team to compete for the Stanley Cup. Hey, let's load it up. I only have one question for you, Julia. Celine Dion makes her home in Vegas. She's a native French Canadian. Who's she rooting for in this series?
So true. It's got to be the Canadiens, right? She wore those sparkly outfits in the 90s with all the Canadiens bedazzling on it. It's got to be the Canadiens. It's French-Canadian faithful, right?
Well, I'll tell you this, Julia, if I were the Vegas Golden Knights, I'd get her to come out and sing the national anthem.
Oh, that would be the ultimate dig. That would really be the ultimate dig. Thank you, Craig, for joining us. We'll see how this chess match between 2 of the best GMs in hockey goes when Game 1 between the Golden Knights and the Habs happens tonight. This has been the BarDown Breakdown.